Today in our panel discussion, we have an esteemed set of panelists. Today we have Kabir Biswas, who is the co-founder and CEO of Dunzo. We have Krishna Raman, the president and business head of consumer products in Bajaj Electricals. Naren Ragula, who is the vice president, head of product strategy and deployment at Flipkart. Rajat Shikhar, the co-founder and CPO at Dealshare. And we have Tarun Dawda, the managing director at Matrix Partners, who will be moderating a very interesting a session on the retail e-commerce market. So I'll now invite Tarun to lead the discussion. Over to you, Tarun. Look forward to an exciting set of insights.
Thank you so much, Mrigank. Just checking in if I'm audible before we get started.
Yes.
I think we can hear you, Tarun.
Excellent. Great. Good to see so many friends and familiar faces on the panel. Excited to be having this discussion with all of you. And by the way, Mrigank, that was an excellent presentation. Lots for us to learn, even though we're active in the market. But just, I think some of the data charts that you presented were indeed very insightful. So thank you for that. So guys, I'm going to kick it off. I think the big question, I guess, we'll start with. I think Mrigank has painted a very good future for e-commerce in India and overall sort of online retail as a big part of India's growth economy, right? So I think it's a more generic one. I'll open it up to everybody. In your mind, and again, from each of your vantage points, right? There are certain things that we all believe need to fall in place for India to truly achieve its online sort of retail potential. Would just love to hear maybe 30 seconds from each of you. What are those key unlocks that are going to be required for us to reach that potential? And whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, maybe I can get started, Tarun, get the ball rolling here.
Sure.
See, I think when you're talking about sort of a 10-year horizon, right, I think we have to start with the macro economy and how the Indian GDP itself is going to sort of trend over the next several years. I think one of the things that has been noticed in other economies as well, when the per capita standard of living gets to sort of that $3,000 mark, right, that unlocks a lot of discretionary spending, right? Yeah. I think we definitely want to see that happen. I think India is at around $2,500 to $2,700 per capita right now. So we are at that precipice. And I think definitely over the next 10 years, you will see this number go up. And this has sort of meaningful impact for categories like electronics, devices categories, and so on, right? So I think that to me is one of the foundational things that needs to happen. The other thing that we also like to talk about is how India is not just sort of one homogeneous group, right? There are many Indias within India. And what we are seeing today is maybe the first wave with the first 150 million customers transacting online. But there are like the next 300 million customers who are active digitally, but they're not necessarily transacting, right? So we expect to see them come through over the next several years. So what are some of the things that we need to do from a personalization standpoint so that we are able to cater to unique needs, right? So whether it is in terms of language, whether it is in terms of overcoming their respective barriers, these are some of the important things that e-commerce needs to do. And maybe one final thing, there are still some challenges that we have as a country, whether it is from a logistics standpoint, whether it is infrastructure availability, whether it is access to some of these things that is not homogeneous. So some of those things also need to be unlocked for us to see e-commerce really take it to the next level here.
Excellent. Kabir, if you don't mind, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. So in some ways, I think you're serving the convenience-seeking customer, and Rajat, on the other hand, is serving the value-conscious customer. So would love to see like which of the ones that Naren went through, which ones are relevant to each of you in your unique contexts.
I think overall for the ecosystem, I think Naren hit the point on. I think buying power needs to go up clearly for those many customers to actually come online. It's nice to go ahead and expect it to happen, but it's not really been pleasant over the last 5 years in terms of buying customers. So I think that's really one big shift. Everything else I've realized we are all building infrastructure for this country. So we'll do that. But the buying customer part of it is hard to do. That I think as it goes up, I think everything else can fall into place. That's the one thing, and don't mind me saying this, Tarun, that VC dollars can't achieve. Everything else you can put into place. You can build the rails, you can build the infrastructure, all of that. Just buying power among transacting customers would be, and number of transacting customers would be very valuable. And I think his point regarding 3,000, what do you call, dollars, I think we've been waiting, right? And it needs to get there soon. The issue really is, if you were to really look at it as triple P, then most likely the number needs to be slightly higher. And the skew and the Pareto on that is even worse. So no, just I think that's the number one if that thing can fall into place. I know people have money beyond the Pareto also, but it's just really hard to aggregate if it is going to be that tiny, right? The amount of money that you deploy in terms of getting your infrastructure, etc., in place becomes hard to go ahead and see return on invested capital. I think for us that's been the one that I think we keeping an eye on, and very interested by all the models that are on the value seeking side of it. Keep a very close eye on it to keep learning as to what's happening. But yeah, I think it's one of the choices that we have made in building our business out also, in terms of trying to focus on a customer who has the economic power to be able to pay for some of the things that we really want to create for them. But no, I think Rajat will have more insights on this one to add.
Sure. Thanks, Kabir and Tarun. So I feel that without an unlock that is happening for tier 2, tier 3, this overall story will never unfold. And the role that the companies have to play is to build and basically create an infrastructure that on which the future e-commerce or internet commerce can basically fly upon. So, I mean, like Naren was mentioning, I think it's important to cater to the unique feature of our tier 2, tier 3 audience, right? In order to make that unlock. The key, I mean, some things which are very core to India is that we are predominantly a poor mid-income kind of country. Which allows only certain amount of focus on certain type of categories of products, right? So, and that's why DealShare is in that category where we are into grocery and essentials, which is highly relevant for the audience. And aggregating demand is going to be very superly important. So I think we will definitely come to the Kirana topic and all those things, but I think the aggregation on both the demand and supply side needs to happen. So one feature is obviously we are a low to medium income group country, and our savviness is low, and we are highly diverse, like Naren was mentioning, right? So that diversity is something which needs to be asked for building technology or services which are very local. And once we start working from their side of story and we start solving from that end, probably that is when we are going to hit from where Kabir is coming. So that's where we are, and that's what we want to build, right? We build an infrastructure which relies on the natural infrastructure of the country and not create a layer which is unit economics wise not so viable.
Yeah. Mr. Krishna, would love to hand it over to you and get some thoughts from yourself as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Tarun, and thank you, RedShare team. This is very interesting because we are today. I represent an industry which is virtually the old economy, if I can use that word, which is transitioning from the brick and mortar to the e-com. So we've been seeing that in the last 4-5 years, a good amount of business has started to flow in through the e-com platform, and I can see going forward that what I call as the phygital model. The phygital model would be not the physical model, but it will not be the digital model at this particular point of time, because we're talking about the next 10 years down the line. So I think the phygital model will start to play on, which means that slowly and surely, the physical model will start giving in to the digital model. Now, one of the challenges I see in transitioning from the earlier model to the new model is, the accessibility and availability of internet across the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, because that is something that is still not up to the mark. We can see that the largely dominated metros are still contributing big time towards this. Number 2 would be in terms of logistics efficiency, because the last mile delivery is going to play a very, very important role, be it in terms of logistics or be it in terms of reverse logistics. Companies have been gearing up and they need to gear up further to ensure that at the last level, which means people are talking about tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 cities as well, because going rural or going to the deep down rural masses of India is very, very important if really we need to achieve this kind of penetration. As you rightly said, 55% and about 9% is from tier 1 and tier 2. And if tier 3 is only contributing to 2%, it means that that is the focus area that is really required to be done. And these could be one of the few things that one should focus on. Notwithstanding these, another important aspect would be the digital payments. Because even today we find that, while we have achieved possibly about 25, 30%, I think opportunities exist for us to penetrate further and get into digital payments across the spectrum of the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. COD continues to be even today the preferred form of payment. But I think if really we need to go digital, that means tier 2 and tier 3 cities need to focus on getting up to the digital world. The government, of course, is doing a lot of initiative. And I think with a lot of work being done by the industry as well, in terms of multiple ways of digitalization, it could be micro ATMs, it could be banking cards, it could be different ways of getting people to start using the digital format to make payment would really help. This apart, I also strongly believe that training is also equally important, because when you move from a physical world to a digital world, what I call as the lack of awareness will play a very important role. But the good thing is that with the upswing of the millennial crowd coming in, it will really help with 40% or 46% of the population forming part of the millennials. I think it will also help towards going faster in the digital platform and spreading the e-com or the retail thing across India. So these, in my opinion, as far as our business avenues are concerned, is something that we need to look at to take this, to leapfrog it to next level.
Great, thank you so much, Krishna. Kabir, I'm going to just respond to something you said, and I know you said it only now just, but it applies as much to us as to you. So in our fundraise, deck, when we go and talk to our sort of investors, we always compare ourselves to what happened in China, right? And I think what China got right was GDP per capita, which went from 2,500 to 10,000 in a decade. Internet users, which went from whatever it is to 1 billion, and internet usage, right? And then obviously with usage, you have to assume that transactions will follow through. I think India has solved 2 out of those 3 problems, right? Internet usage has gone through the roof. Internet users have gone through the roof in the last 3 years thanks to Jio, and now even further accelerated with COVID. The GDP per capita increases, unfortunately, for all of us to wait, observe, and pray to God that it happens, and our dream of the 5 trillion economy comes true sooner than later. So it is, that is clearly something which none of us can really solve at our individual level, but hopefully collectively we all can do something. Okay, coming to the second question, there was a time where people thought kiranas will go out of business when a bunch of online companies started. Obviously, over time, people have realized that kiranas are the backbone of this country, and we can't touch them in the foreseeable future, right? I think large part of the economy, at least in several categories, is still sort of driven by the kirana stores. So I would love to hear views, and again, don't need to go through everybody, only those who have something to share can maybe speak up. What expectations do y'all have over the next few years in terms of the technologies that will unlock these kiranas and get them ready for a digital first world, right? And each of y'all work, I guess, in some different shape or form with kiranas, right? So I would love to just hear views from whoever has something to share.
I can go first on this.
Sure.
So I think if you look at the total number of kirana stores in the country, right, there is 1 kirana store per 100 Indians. That is the penetration that kiranas have. Now, I mean, purely from economic perspective, I think in order for this system to reach some kind of economic equilibrium, there needs to be some level of aggregation on the consumer side and as well as supplier side. Because till then that happens, they will not be like, I mean, there will be so many kiranas, but not everybody would be economically doing well as compared to like if there's a common entity which is aggregating demand and aggregating supplier on one end, right? So that is one thing that will certainly define how the technology and things would evolve in this space. If you look at the penetration of technology, I think there are like 5 million, around 5 million POS in the country, which where there is a huge upside when it comes like overall 13, 14 million Kirana stores. So opportunity here that I feel is that like in India, like we bypass the whole desktop internet stage, we probably would bypass the entire supermarket stage, and we go directly to e-commerce via this network of kiranas, right? So that is one possibility that may happen. Now kiranas can play several multiple roles just by being at the spot where consumers are, right? Like I said, we are very diverse and we are very local in our preferences. Food preferences change by like 100 kilometers in our country. So kiranas can play very central role over there. They can play the role of last mile logistics hub. They can play the role of what like the quick commerce is trying to achieve at the last mile. It can play the role of very important part, which everybody mentioned, is in payments. Like it can have a khata kind of a thing at the stores where cash is more easily, credit is easy, etc. And maybe the new emerging models like community leaders also have some dimensions that kiranas could eventually be part of. So I very strongly feel that that's going to be something which is an open field right now, where like a lot of things, a lot of activities are happening, but still it needs to get into that shape.
Yeah.
Arun, can I?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think taking a cue from what Rajat said, looking at the large proliferation of the kiranas in India, it is going to take some time before they actually, are made to come on the digital platform. But the good thing is that a lot of work has started in the last few years, and a lot of work will be done in the next few years. Now, most important thing is to make it inclusive. Today, we are seeing that there are multiple models available. Notwithstanding the B2C model, there is also the B2B model. Now, there are many players talking about the B2B model, which is expected to grow by 6x times compared to what it is today. So an inclusive model, by getting the kiranas on board, will to a large extent help in terms of seamless transition from the physical world to the digital world, number one. Number two, as I said earlier, facility in terms of payments, digital payments, will enable them also to latch on to this, number two. Number three would be also in terms of ensuring that language, because today what happens is India again is largely rural. So we can see that, comfort with English is still not there. But the good thing is that a lot of vernacular has started to come in. The more and more we start getting into the vernacular, it becomes very easy for the kiranas also to understand that this is going to be the way forward. Again, another thing is social commerce, which is helping. Omni-channel. Today, many companies are resorting to omni-channel because last mile, as you know very well, there are about 19,000 and odd pin codes in India. And out of the 19,000 and odd pin codes, there are still about 2,000, 3,000 pin codes which are still not accessible. I'm told that only India Post is delivering to these 19,000 locations. While logistics has come a long way, but if you really need to go and make the kiranas also completely come on board, I think that should be made available to all the 19,000 pin codes. People should be able to deliver, people should be able to include them in the whole scheme of things. That will make a big shift towards, going forward in this whole campaign.
Yeah, no, great point, Krishna. Naren, what do you have to say about that? I know you guys are doing some experiments as well, so would love to hear.
Yeah, see, I think more than experiments, given that B2B and the old Walmart India business is now part of Flipkart, right? And so it is a key part of our overall are successful in this country. I totally agree with the point that you made, Tarun, that they are going to be here to stay. I don't think they're going away. I think in a way, digitization, even for the kiranas, has started, right? So everybody now has a QR code, so at least the payments part of it can be made in the kiranas. Many of the kiranas are actually distribution partners for large e-commerce companies like Flipkart, right? So an interesting, tidbit, data point that probably people may not be aware that about a third of all the deliveries that happened during Flipkart Big Billion Days were actually delivered by our Kirana partners, right? And so this is really a great partnership that can be unlocked. And with the greater adoption of digital technologies, right, I think the Kiranas also will see a path to add to their bottom line, right? Their opportunities to earn additional streams of income. The other interesting thing is, depending on who you talk to, right, there are about 15 to 20 million Kiranas in this country, and they come in all shapes and sizes. And the traditional FMCG companies, right, they only used to cater to a small percentage of them, right? Like maybe like 15, 20%. Those are the companies that were catered to through direct delivery to stores and doing their logistics runs, credit availability, and so on. Right. So, but for this vast majority of the rest of the Kiranas, even those basic things that exist for the top 20% of the Kiranas don't exist, right? And the opportunity for companies to democratize those things for the broader set of Kiranas, I think is a great opportunity, and we are trying to do our part here.
Great, Kabir, do you have something to add?
Yes. So no, on this, I think we've always thought about it as what time horizon do we want to take, right? So if you were to take a 5-year time horizon, or if you were to take a 20-year time horizon on the problem, our estimate is that in a real long time horizon, what's going to happen is most likely everything that is commodity retail will not have a storefront in urban centers. They will go ahead and become points from which either deliveries are happening or items are getting stocked. And not all of them, of course. I think this whole habit of trying to say broad stroke, we'll go ahead and have one generalization, I don't agree with. There'll of course be, long tail stores who will do really well, people who have unique selection who will continue to exist. No need for them to go anywhere, right? But anything that's just very, very commodity retail is most likely going to go become delivery centers, like the billion-day thing that what you call Naren was saying. Or they would just go ahead and become stocking points for stuff to go ahead and become deliveries in. If you were to take a 5-year horizon, I think we'll just see multiple models play out on top of this, right? It will again, we'll again go ahead and see, like a Flipkart go ahead and do what they are doing. You'll go ahead and see enough of these start getting digitized and starting to seeing if they can control their own demand. We are going ahead and trying, and so we work with close to 20,000 odd local stores in the country. There's an intent, especially because of COVID, to go ahead and become try and see as to what they can do more digitally. How can they go ahead and bring more online orders in? The need to educate themselves has become much higher. But I think there is a very different way that customers perceive what an online transaction should do for them versus what an offline transaction should do for them. And that perception on the consumer side is a hard one to change, even if they are ordering from a local store itself, because their expectation is quality of service will be that high, irrespective of whether you're ordering from a local store. It's that experience when you order, and I'm sorry, Darren, but I'm going to take Amazon. Amazon, if you go ahead and order from FBA, or if you were to go ahead and order from the marketplace, you can tell the difference, but your expectation is the same when you're ordering from Amazon, right? And I think that shift, the marketplace of local merchants will have to figure out. The ones that they make the shift will 100% survive and do really, really well. The ones that don't most likely will become distribution points.
Yeah. So on that note, I was talking to one of the large e-commerce company founders recently, and I asked him, what's the number one priority for you in the next 5 years? And his answer was unequivocally next 100 million shoppers, right? Because that is clearly where the game is going to get played out. And your tier one sort of California Indians, all of them are online, everyone's ordering, everyone's, figured out their online shopping habits and have their own set of loyalties to which, one or the other platform. It's the next 100 million shoppers that everyone is going after, right? For these, customers, I'm sure, and across the board, it sounds like this would be relevant for everybody. So would love to maybe just get quick 60 seconds from each of you. What are the problems, when we think about tier two, the most obvious one is vernacular, language, COD. I would like to hear some differentiated insight from you all on what are real problems to be solved for these people, right? And what are you all doing uniquely, which is beyond the obvious?
Yeah, see, I think maybe I can start. I think clearly it starts with vernacular. I think vernacular now, I think is looks like every new company that comes out, right? They come with multiple languages now. I think that's good to see. And once people choose their language of choice, right? So that is their transaction medium, right? So everything else that they're doing in the future is based on that. The other thing to also call out is the current set of e-commerce apps, right? So they were built in a certain way for the first 150 million users, right? And they are like packed with capabilities, packed with features. There are like merchandising banners. So it can be really busy and intimidating for people who are coming from the tier 2 plus towns, right? And so even working on what are those personalized user experience constructs that we need to deliver, so that the next 200 million customers are comfortable when they transact online. It is something that I think we should all work on. It is something that we are working on pretty actively at Flipkart. I think we are beginning to see the introduction of voice and image search on the platform. I think voice has great potential. While I think it has been talked about more in terms of a future technology trend, I think the comfort and the ease with which people are able to use voice, even on broader searches on Google or on YouTube and so on, is actually quite high, right? It's actually surprisingly high. I was very surprised when I found out how many people actually use voice search on those platforms. And to be able to bring those technologies and make them work seamlessly for an e-commerce use case is something that we've been working on. And I think for people who have experienced that capability, I think it turns out to be quite meaningful, right? So in terms of their behavior on the platform. I think the other thing that is going to be a constant theme for India in general is affordability, right? How do you make things more affordable for a large? Would mean a bunch of different things, including our ability to efficiently and cost effectively deliver low ASP items, for example, right? So things affordable through credit, right? How do you make things affordable through unique constructs, right? So, for example, one of the things that we did in the most recent Big Billion Days, how do you make the upfront cost of a mobile phone less expensive for customers, right? Through Samsung, right? So these are some of the innovations that companies need to bring to bear so that the next 200 million customers can come on board. I'll let others add a few more concepts. There are a lot of things. I think this is going to be a wave of huge innovation over the next 10 years for us to unlock this.
Absolutely. So I'll go next. So I think I agree with Naren on some of the aspects that he brought about the savviness of the next set of users. And I mean, this experience needs to be built with lots of first principles thinking. Like when we started Dealshare, we just started with the page with just a product, and then we started like a list of 10 products, and then we evolved the platform from there. So that is going to be very important, because we can't just import or copy what has worked in West, and we have to think our process needs to change when we are talking about savviness and what experience makes sense for the next set of users. And I think engagement also needs to be looked at slightly differently, right? We need to understand how and what is the Indianness in buying. Like, we like to bargain, we like to do we have certain peculiar ways of perceiving value, right? So those values, I mean, that value needs to be translated into experience in some way or form. I think vernacular, payments, and infrastructure, I think we have already covered. So I'll cover two more points. Like, one is obviously it needs to be very local. We have to build platforms which work and are able to be configured to operate at local levels, where you can have aggregation of suppliers, farmers, manufacturers, in a pure e-commerce sense, right? And basically build systems to empower them to reach out to the audience in that region or target audience in that region. So that is another unlock that needs to happen to make that work. The third point is, I think if we compare to China, I think we don't have a social commerce amplifier like WeChat, where you are on the demand side, you are able to aggregate in a very fast way. Like, obviously we are all using WhatsApp, but WhatsApp is not that medium which sits well with the overall commerce thing. So it's a huge wide space to be taken. And I'm hoping that we will soon get there. But that is the third thing which definitely would really help in aggregating demand using the social and those networks. That's about from.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things, or the differentiator, if I can use, is building trust. To those people, you got to tell them that this is a business that is going to stay for decades or for generations to come. So building trust is going to be the most important one. Number two is that building your infrastructure, which means service network. Today, companies which are engaged in the look and feel model of products, you got to create a service network that will go down to the last level in the whole system, where people believe that I can go down the road and get my product fixed or get my product properly serviced. So that is something that companies need to look at. Well, companies need to start looking at the logistics, reverse logistics also. At the same time, they have to build a service network. That is number two. Number three, communication has to be two-way. It can't be just from one side. It has to be two-way. And that's where the social commerce plays a very, very important role, because today we see that it becomes a two-way communication. So that will help. Even a simple thing like e-catalogs. Do away with your physical catalogs, go into e-catalogs. People must start understanding how to see an e-catalog and how to take the benefits out of an e-catalog. And also transparency. The more transparent you are, the better the business you're going to make in time to come. This apart, I think one more thing is India is talking again and again about literacy. We have come a long way from the levels that we were in the 2000s or the 1990s to where we are today. We are possibly at about 80% literacy level. Now, time to talk about literacy, about the online platform or e-com literacy. How are we going to create this awareness in every tier city, every location in India, where people are encouraged to use the digital mode and start ordering products? Because that is going to be the future. So it's going to be a combination of training, it's going to be a combination of usage, it's going to be a combination of adaptability, acceptability, all this leading towards a massive revolution.
Yeah. Just, I don't know how much time we have, Mrigang, but I'm going to go ahead and ask at least one more question, given it's fairly topical. So I think in your presentation you referred to this theme of quick commerce, where multiple global companies, including GoPuff, Getter, Gorillas, etc., are growing very, very rapidly. Where the single promise is delivery speed, right? So would love to hear a little bit about from all of you, and Kabir, would love to especially get your views on this, which is what role could this quick commerce model play in shifting customers' wallet share online? Which categories do you think it will likely play out in? And do you believe, given how e-commerce in India, the bane has always been unit economics, right? What is the relevance of this whole quick commerce model in that context to the Indian market?
So I actually didn't respond to the previous question because it's not something that we focus on at all, clearly, right? I think a lot of what you call online transactions are what you call today built out of the fact that we have created access and we have created convenience. Right? Those are the two things that drive a lot of the behavior of people buying online. I think there is space for exceptional experiences for customers, and the top 40-50 million customers in this country will care, do care. And as somebody, I think you call them California Indians, right? I think we live in a world where experience is actually very passe for a country where cost of labor is this low. You could have exceptional experiences being delivered, and which is why I think our penetration, even for those customers, right, who are online, is not really that high, because they continue to shop in a different fashion, continue to shop offline, etc. Because again, the experience online doesn't continue to be any better. It's either access or it's convenience. That's what it's driving. It's not coming from an experience perspective, right? And I think that's really where these models could actually go ahead and bring a chunk of transactions that are waiting for experience to go ahead and play out for them to actually come online. So we're not necessarily looking for taking away a share of wallet at all. We most likely are going behind a really large part of the wallet that I think is most likely not getting tapped into, because the online experience today is a little passive. Like, I actually don't understand why anything is next day delivery ever. For literally the top, let's take 100,000 SKUs that you would buy in a life or in your city, right? They're available within 30-45 minutes time. I don't understand why there is any reason for it to come to you like next day, or come to you from Srinagar, not Srinagar, let me just say, somewhere in the Northeast. The fundamental promise of commerce, by the way, is a little built around the fact that it's cheaper, it's going to come to you. So there's convenience, access and stuff is there. But if you were to really try and bring a lot of what you call offline exists online, you could create an exceptional experience where people then start thinking of these as saying, okay, these are available instantly. I don't need to actually think about saying, I'll have to plan for stuff like this. And it becomes akin to you are going out and buying something, or even having a local phone number on your phone, where you are going ahead and transacting with somebody and saying, hey, can you just get this delivered and stuff like that. So that, I think, is really where we are going after, where the promise is that the existing set of customers who are transacting online, a very large share of their wallet is actually not getting a just quality of service that they would actually appreciate, and try and build for them. And we've actually seen that also. None of our customers are online, coming online on Dunzo first. That's not what's happening, right? But they end up transacting with us about 2.5 times a week. And what we see is, and when we actually go do a little bit of work with them, it seems like potentially only maybe like 10% of those transactions could have happened on any other platform out there. And they are going ahead and bringing transactions that were going to go ahead and happen in an off fashion onto these platforms. So potentially you're sitting at that cusp where a lot of hard work has been done by what you call existing transaction platforms. A lot of infrastructure has gotten created, and now you take all of those and go marry them into saying, can I go build an exceptional experience on top of local commerce? But that's really where we want to go ahead and say that, this is existing users for whom we can go ahead and create a significantly better experience, whose very large share of wallet doesn't continue to be online even now.
Are they willing to pay for it, for the convenience?
I think you'll have to bring it down to landed cost being equal. The thing really is that there is enough margin in the supply chain. You have to just keep going up in the supply chain. So what you do is you start with the top 5%, build enough of a business that your cost infrastructure starts coming down. Take that infrastructure, take it upwards into the supply chain, and bring that margin in back to go towards the middle class and the urban poor. So that's what we have been doing for the last 2 years' time. We have gone ahead and brought the top 5% of those customers who are willing to pay, gone ahead and built infrastructure because of that, and now are able to hit those price points where actually at a landed cost we are cheaper or equal to what you would go ahead and do this in an offline fashion. So which is where I think there is an inflection point that ends up happening at anywhere from about $200 to $400 million of transactions that happen on these platforms. So I think between us and whoever is competition, we are at about 250 odd. We should see a massive inflection point happen next year, I think.
Excellent.
Yeah, maybe just to add a comment, right? I think to my earlier comment on how there are many Indias, there are clearly parts of the market for whom, if you tell them that, hey, you're going to get a 50 rupees or 100 rupees off on a T-shirt or a product, and it's going to come to you on day 3 or day 4, I'm sure there'll be millions of customers who make that trade-off, right? But what is also true is in some of these cities, urban areas particularly, I think people are happy and willing to pay for convenience, right? And that was the thinking behind Flipkart also launching the Flipkart Quick service, right? So which is our hyper local delivery capability. And I agree with what Kabir is saying, right? It is not just a just for fresh fruits and vegetables or grocery. This could be across a set of finite number of SKUs that you're able to deliver really quickly, right? So one interesting use case for this, for Flipkart, is for people who have that excitement when they purchase their mobile phone. Why wait for a day or 2 days? That I want it right now. And in some cases, people are willing to pay for that, right? And so I do see. In fact, I would say, Flipkart Quick is my favorite Flipkart service, right? And that is my go-to thing. The convenience factor of that is actually quite high. So we will definitely see this model and many other models being, piloted.
Rajat, what about you? For the customer you serve, do you really is speed of service really the most important thing?
Sorry, Tarun, you're asking me?
Yeah, I was just asking you for the customer base that you serve,
Yeah.
how important is speed of delivery?
So let's say we are in a dosa or a tonk in a Rajasthan, right? Which is 120 kilometers, let's say from Jaipur, kind of a place, right? Where there are no stores also, like mid-sized store also. So there, obviously, there is no, I mean, obviously people, if like Kabir was saying, right? Like given a choice, everybody wants everything now, right? Because there's no logical reason to wait for it. But there is a gradation, right? So even e-commerce evolved to the point where we are talking about quick commerce from days when it would take a week or 10 days to get things delivered. So I think that evolution needs to happen at a national level. And as Deep Chair, we are like, obviously we are focusing on that market. So the context of quick commerce, like if the genesis of quick commerce is basically in food delivery, right? It has started from more capex utilization from food delivery and started delivering more stuff to the customers. In terms of categories, if you ask me, it is serving the food delivery only, but probably has shifted. And Kabir can probably will have more data on that. It basically focuses on people who are cooking themselves and they need something to in real time to cook the next meal maybe. So it basically precedes the ordering hour of food delivery and basically caters to that kind of market. But I think if you're talking about aggregating demand and unit economics, we need to balance what kind of catalog and curation makes sense to have at such proximity of the customers that it makes unit economic sense. Like, I mean, there will be a balance of curation and the preferences of the customer. Like, what is that catalog which is high, fast moving and is kept very close to the customer? That maps and that preferences needs to be understood at a regional, local level, and then only there will be a viable solution around quick commerce.
Yeah. Okay, guys, I have actually just got a prompt to say that I think we're over time. Riveting discussion, everybody. I learned a lot, and thank you so much for all your insights. I guess if there is nothing else, I'll take this opportunity to maybe just thank all of you. I know all of you are incredibly busy individuals, so appreciate the time, appreciate the insights, and with that, I'll hand it back to the Red Sea